My dearest Natalie, as I write this letter, it's the middle of the night in late summer. An hour ago, you cracked the equations necessary to power the force field. You showed me up tonight, my magnificent daughter, and I couldn't be happier or prouder of that. I always knew you were special, but never did I fathom that the little girl who taught her staffed Nazi multiplication tables would grow up to master quantum laser mechanics. I have assured the Syndicate that the modified containment force field will be operational in a month's time, and it's all thanks to you. I may be just a doddering old fool trying to hold on to mon bébé a little while longer before he loses her to a daughter. But I do see you. I see the strong, brilliant, wonderful young woman you've become. And I know when the day comes that I'm no longer with you, you are going to be just fine. The games will be brilliant because you are brilliant. My daughter can and will do anything she wants in this life because she is the smartest woman in the frontier. Je t'aime de tout mon cœur, pour toujours. Papa.
I did it, Papa. I hope wherever you are, you're cheering for me.
Hello, Johnny from Eurogamer here, and this is Apex Legends. Unfortunately, it's not fresh footage of Wattson, the newest legend to come to Respawn Entertainment's Battle Royale game, because I wasn't allowed to capture any. However, I have played as Wattson, and that's a good start. If you watched the channel before, you'll know I'm not exactly the most gifted of Apex Legends players, but I got to play for a little while, and thankfully, Eurogamer reporter Emma Kent is a gifted Apex Legends player. We compared notes after our hands-on time, and let's face it, mostly thanks to her, I now feel sufficiently knowledgeable to speak confidently on what Natalie Paquette is like. So, let's get to it. Firstly, I really like her design. From the crackling Tesla coil-like device on her back, to the aviator's cap on her noggin with a little blonde fringe poking out, Wattson looks like an explorer, an inventor, and, to be honest, quite a nice person. And the cool thing is that's borne out in her animations as well. One of her abilities, which I'll talk more about later, allows her to construct an electric barrier by laying down pylons. She deploys each one with a delicate hand movement that's quite like Symmetra placing turrets in Overwatch, but when she's done putting up this little fence, she gives her newly constructed electrical child a tiny round of applause, and it's such a brilliant gesture of delight that I found myself taking to her immediately. She reminds me a bit of Amelia Earhart, to be honest, and I think she's a really good addition to the roster of legends. I mean, I also have a dog called Wattson, so based on names alone I am, of course, already horribly biased, but whatever. So let's talk about the way Wattson plays. To give you a quick recap, Wattson is described as a static defender. Her primary ability is called Perimeter Security, allowing her to create electrified fences that both damage and slow enemies. This is the ability I mentioned her applauding just a minute ago. She can place an impressive 12 nodes in total, so her ability to change the shape of the battlefield around her is genuinely quite impressive. Wattson and her squad mates can pass through the barriers without any ill effects, but, as mentioned previously, any enemies crossing the perimeter will take a bit of damage and will also have their movement slowed. Emma described Wattson as like a sheepdog, but more lethal, and I think that's a pretty great description. While abilities like Perimeter Security seem very defensive at the outset, you can quickly come to realise how effective they can be in herding your enemies and corralling them into a space where they can be effectively targeted. Exactly how much damage Perimeter Security does is kind of an interesting thing to talk about, and ties into how significant Wattson is likely to prove in the Apex Legends metagame, but we'll come back to that in just a minute. Wattson's ultimate is called Interception Pylon. With this ability, she slaps down the big electric doodad she carries around on her back. It starts spinning up and generates an electrical field which, while active, blocks incoming ordnance and also repairs damaged shields. Just for clarity, when I say ordnance, I mean grenades and that. It doesn't block bullets, for example. Even still, it's a really useful ability, allowing players a moment to recover themselves without having to surrender their hands to the painfully slow shield battery animation. Being able to pump out damage while your shields recover is just the kind of tactical advantage that can edge another team out in a firefight, although obviously its limited range means you will be tethered to that one area. So her tactical and ultimate abilities are pretty cool and have the potential to really change things up in Apex, particularly in the late game, but it's actually in her passive ability that Wattson gets really interesting. Called Spark of Genius, it allows Wattson to recharge her perimeter security ability by standing next to her ult when it's active, meaning she can throw fences up faster, but more importantly, it only takes one ultimate accelerant to fully charge her ultimate, even if it's starting out on 0%. And just like that, there's suddenly another character to start force-feeding accelerants. Lifeline mains can suddenly breathe a sigh of relief. So that's how Wattson works, but what's she actually like to use in the arena? Well, perimeter security, for one thing, is really interesting. First and foremost, it's nice to set something up and know a route is at least partially covered, if not totally. The barriers, of course, are not a shield, so they don't block incoming gunfire, and enemies can still run through them if they choose. But even if the security they provide is only limited, it's still quite useful. All in all, it just helps to remember the fences are not a hard defensive line. They're more of a tool whereby you can try and influence which way your enemies will go. It has to be said that the barriers are a dead giveaway if you're trying to be sneaky, but then you could say the same about Caustic's traps, or Lifeline's care packages, or Pathfinder's zipline, so, whatever. The big question mark over this ability at the moment, though, is whether the damage and slowing rates given out by the fences are strong enough to really act as a deterrent. Emma and I compared notes, and neither of us really noticed enemies slowing down that much when coming through the barrier, and Emma in particular noticed that a trip through one of them knocked just one chunk of charge off a gold shield somebody had equipped, so really, is that enough for them to be consistently effective? In the games we played, people tended to avoid the barriers like the plague, but I think in time they won't seem as big and new and scary, and at that point I think players will be far less timid about taking them on. That, or they'll just find new routes around. I mean, Octane's jump pads seem custom built for this purpose in particular, so I'm not really sure how big an impact Wattson's tactical ability is really going to have on the Apex Legends metagame. Her ultimate, on the other hand, has the potential to really influence the way Apex plays out, especially in the late game. Spamming out bits of ordnance, especially arc stars, is very much part and parcel of the end of a round of Apex, but Wattson's ultimate, while active, renders them utterly irrelevant. Respawn has said this is partly deliberate and aimed specifically at arc star spam toward the end of the game, but when you consider Wattson can recharge her ult entirely with just one dose of accelerant, then Interception Pylon starts looking really, really powerful. Potentially too powerful. All in all though, I think Wattson is a great choice for the 10th Legend to join the arena. From her design and her backstory, she's the daughter of the inventor of all the electrical tech that powers the arena by the way, so, lot of blood on that family's hands, to her abilities and what they mean for Apex Legends in the future. All in all, I'm really looking forward to her joining the fight when she launches in July. And there you have it, those are our thoughts on Wattson in Apex Legends. Thanks again to Emma for being considerably better at Apex Legends than I am, and for her own keen insights on the new character. Now you've heard a bit more about her though, what do you think? Are you tempted to make her your new main, or will you just leave that to other players? Your comments, as ever, would be very welcome. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, there are loads more from Eurogamer for you to check out, especially this week of all weeks while we're at E3, furiously making stuff. Some of those videos should be on your screen now, so why not give one of those a click? Do like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you don't miss anything else from Eurogamer, but most importantly, thank you very much for watching, and have a lovely day.